Welcome to the channel where we dive into the delicious world of healthy eating. Today we're whipping up a scrumptious vegan lemon cheesecake. This isn't just any cheesecake, it's a gluten-free, sugar-free vegan masterpiece, packed with all the creamy and tangy flavors you adore. We'll start with the crust. First, in a bowl, combine 120 grams of rice flour, 40 grams of buckwheat flour, and 40 grams of almond flour. You can use store-bought almond flour or grind whole almonds yourself. It doesn't matter whether the almonds are white or brown. As we use almond as our base flour, its color won't affect the outcome. Once you've measured out the almond flour, get everything mixed together. Meanwhile, preheat your oven to 340 degrees Fahrenheit, heating from both the top and bottom. Next, add 30 grams of melted coconut oil to the mixture. Mix well. You can use a spatula or even your hands to integrate the oil. The goal is to achieve a fine, sandy texture that will bake shortly. Once everything is well combined and you've achieved a crumbly texture, add 50 milliliters of water and mix again. Keep stirring until the mixture starts to form small clumps. Don't rush this step. Make sure the moisture is evenly distributed throughout the dough. After the crumb is ready, prepare your baking tray. Line it with parchment paper cut to fit. Carefully place the crumb mixture on the tray, ensuring an even layer. It's important that the crumbs don't contain sugar. We'll be adding sweetness later on. Distribute the crumbs evenly to avoid any thin spots that might burn or thick piles that won't bake through properly. Now that the oven is preheated to 340 degrees Fahrenheit, bake the crumbs for 10 minutes. Watch closely as the crust can start to burn quickly. If you need to pull it out early to prevent burning, do so. It should turn a light golden color, not brown. Place the baking tray on the middle rack. While the crust is baking, get your cheesecake mold ready. Cut a square of parchment paper to fit your 7-inch mold. You'll also need aluminum foil, and it's better to have more than less, since the cheesecake will be baked in a water bath, and you want to ensure no water seeps into the mold. Cut 3 generous pieces of foil. If you're not confident about the seal, use 4. Here's how to lay the foil. First long ways, then the opposite way, and finally diagonally. Place the parchment in the center. Set the mold on it. Now, very important, carefully raise the edges of the foil without crumpling them. If you crumple the edges, water might seep through. Lift the edges gently on all 4 sides, then press down the top edges while keeping the sides smooth. Your mold is now ready. Now let's check on the crust. Notice its golden color, and remember, do not overbake, as the nutty taste could become unpleasant, affecting your cheesecake's base. If it's overdone, it's better to start over than to use a burnt base. Now let's prepare the crust. First, break down any large clumps. If you have large chunks, use a blender to grind them. If, like mine, your crumbs are fine, a spatula or spoon will do. Once ready, transfer the crumbs to a suitable bowl. Next, add 60 grams of coconut sugar to the crumbs and mix until uniform. Traditionally, cheesecake bases are made by crushing biscuits into crumbs, mixing with butter, and pressing into a mold. We're going a healthier route. Instead of adding more fat, we'll use ready-made apple puree. Make your own following our recipe or buy it from the baby food section. This gives the perfect texture, reduces calories, and maintains quality without excess fat. Add 70 grams of apple puree to the crumbs. Keep the puree handy in case you need to add a bit more to achieve the right stickiness. Mix everything well. You should end up with a moist crumb mixture that easily forms into a base for the cheesecake. The crumb consistency is perfect. Now it's time to transfer it to the mold. It's easiest to do this with your hands. Transfer the mixture into the mold and begin shaping the base by forming the sides. Try to make the side walls thinner so more of the crumb remains on the bottom. To make it easier to even out the base, you can use a glass with a flat bottom and sides. It's much simpler than using your hands alone. You should achieve a neat, even result. Now, refrigerate the base while we prepare the cream. To make the cream, you'll need a stationary blender Although an immersion blender could work, it would take much longer. Start by taking 100 grams of cashews, which should be soaked for at least 2 to 3 hours, or better yet, overnight for about 8 hours, to soften them. Place the softened cashews in the blender, then add 150 milliliters of coconut milk and some melted coconut oil. Include buckwheat flour, rice flour, and 10 grams of cornstarch. Use a scale to measure it. For sweeteners, we're using syrup. Pour it in. Add 300 grams of tofu, breaking it into small pieces to make it easier for the blender. The amount of syrup added will provide a moderate sweetness. If you prefer it sweeter, you could add a tiny bit of stevia. This will enhance the sweetness. Of course, we can't forget to infuse our cheesecake with a vanilla flavor. Split a vanilla pod, open it, and scrape out the seeds with a knife. These are what we need. Now blend everything until smooth. When the cream is ready, we also need to zest a lemon and 2 limes. You can use a zester like mine, which works perfectly for removing the zest. Be sure to zest only the colored part of the peel, avoiding the white pith underneath, as it's bitter and undesirable. We want the zest for its fragrance, which is contained only in the outer colored layer. Do the same with the lime, removing only the top green layer. Now we need to juice the lemon and lime, adding about 4 tablespoons of the juice to the cream. Taste the cream and adjust for sweetness or any other flavoring as needed. Add the zest to the blender and stir gently with a spatula directly in the blender to avoid dirtying additional dishes. Retrieve the base from the refrigerator and prepare a water bath setup. Use a pan that can go in the oven. If yours has a metal handle, it's suitable. If not, find an alternative oven-safe container for the water bath. Place your prepared crust, well wrapped in foil, in the pan and pour the cream over it. Shake the mold gently to settle the cream evenly and remove any air bubbles. Fill the pan with water up to halfway up the sides of the mold and bake in a preheated oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. After baking, let the cheesecake cool at room temperature for about an hour, then prepare the lemon jelly topping. For the jelly, mix 150 milliliters of water with the juice of 1 lemon, about 50 grams, 50 grams of syrup, and a half teaspoon of turmeric for color. Stir well, then add 1 teaspoon of agar and mix again. Cook this mixture on the stove, bringing it to a boil and simmering for 5 minutes while stirring continuously. Pour the jelly over the cheesecake and let it set in a cool place for 6 to 8 hours until firm. If the cheesecake sticks to the mold, run a knife along the edge to loosen it before removing the mold. Carefully transfer the cheesecake to a serving plate. For decoration, I'll use lime slices and rosemary. And you could also use cinnamon sticks for an extra touch. This is how our wonderful lemon cheesecake turned out. Enjoy your meal. I developed this recipe to ensure that the tofu is imperceptible and that the cheesecake is as creamy as a classic New York cheesecake. I hope you find it successful, but you can judge for yourself. Bye for now.